Hey there, and welcome to Workforce Pulse, the podcast for recruitment and staffing founders who are ready to grow, scale, and shake up the industry. I'm your host, Kirutika Munusamy, and I'm so glad you're here. This is where we have real, no nonsense conversation about what it takes to build a thriving business in recruitment and staffing. Forget the fluff. We're all about strategies that actually work, shared by the people who've been there and done it. A quick shout out to our sponsor, Ambrosial Automations. At Ambrosial Automations, we are your behind the scene growth partner. We help recruitment and staffing businesses streamline their operations, bring in quality leads, boost sales, and scale, all without the upfront risk. We work on a revenue shared model, so we don't succeed unless you do. If you're curious about how it works, head over to ambrosialautomations.com for a free 12-month growth plan that's tailored just for you. All right, let's dive in. Today, we have a truly inspiring guest joining us, Tatiana Becker, the founder of NIAH Recruiting, a leading tech talent acquisition firm. Tatiana's career journey is nothing short of fascinating. She started as a coder at Microsoft, played a pivotal role in talent acquisition at companies like AppNexus and Etsy, and ultimately built her own recruiting firm from the ground up. Tatiana, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
The pleasure is all ours. So, Tatiana, tell us more about yourself, your background, and the role within. Should I call it NIA or NIAH?
Yep, that's how we pronounce it. It's actually an acronym that stands for needle in a haystack because often that's what we're looking for.
Oh, that's interesting. So, so tell us more about yourself, your background, and the role within NIA Recruiting.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is not what I wanted to be when I grew up. But, if you ask most recruiters will tell you the same thing. Like, this is not a job that you think about like policeman, fireman, astronaut. We all kind of fell into it in some random way. And so for me, first I got my degrees in math and astrophysics and thought that I wanted to get a PhD and study black holes. But I felt pretty beat up after 4 years at Berkeley. Fortunately, I had learned to code along the way because you do need to code to study astrophysical data, and I loved it. And so I went and found a job at Microsoft, and I was writing C# test code for the tablet PC. And that was cool. We were in emerging technologies. So in a sense, like I got the taste of working in a startup while in a big company. They moved us to Windows in 2004. Who wanted to be in Windows in 2004?
Yeah.
So I went to college recruiting and I thought it would just be something that I did for a little while for fun. And now, oh my gosh, it's 21 years later and recruiting ended up being my thing. But after a couple years in college recruiting, I left and got my MBA, moved to New York, and I got to be really early stage at those companies. So I was about employee 50 at AppNexus and around employee 200 at Etsy. And so what was really fun about those roles is that it was really starting with a blank slate in terms of recruiting process in those companies. And I am thankful for my 5 years at Microsoft because Microsoft does have a process for everything. And
Yeah.
I don't always agree with those processes. And I saw some room for some process improvement, but it gave me a foundation to know how to build my own processes. So I did that in these internal companies while we were in these times of explosive growth. I loved bringing people in that were going to be tomorrow's leaders in our companies. And my last in-house role, I was a director of HR at a little e-commerce company that didn't get enough funding. And so I had to lay off half the staff and then I got laid off. And I had another job offer for an HR role at a company that ended up doing very well, IPOing and everything. I mean, hindsight 2020 there, but at the time I just felt like I am not ready to take another in-house role. Like that was a difficult experience in my professional life. I thought I would just freelance for a bit. And the reason that I think NIA has worked out for these 12 years is the fact that I came from the internal world. And I do think about every hire as a good long-term person who's going to be a future leader in the company and not just like a placement, which is very transactional and just on to the next one. So I did not expect to be running an agency for 12 years now. But I think our uniqueness has been some of the key to our success.
Yeah, I think you've been doing great. Otherwise, you would not be in the industry for 12 years, right?
Thank you.
So, okay. So what are the big trends that you are seeing in the industry right now?
AI, I mean, that's the elephant in the room. You cannot deny that AI is really changing the industry. So, I have a few thoughts on it. I mean, you hear some people saying AI is going to replace recruiters. Well, in 2000 people said the internet is going to replace recruiters. We still have recruiters. And so I do believe that this is a level of innovation on the order of the internet. And the internet did fundamentally change the way that recruiters work. I mean, before, say 2000, a lot of recruiters literally had the old school Rolodex on their desk. And that was, they were going through and calling their contacts, or they would literally get a phone book and they would look for a certain company and just go down the list and just be calling straight into mainline phones in a company. And, then we saw job boards and LinkedIn and different ways to connect with people. And so if you strictly relied on your old Rolodex method, you would have become an outdated recruiter and, probably wouldn't have continued to be successful. So
Yeah.
I don't think that we can ignore the AI trend, but I think that it's very, very early right now. And so I don't think that we've seen what are going to become the dominant platforms really emerging yet. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it took LinkedIn a few years, like into the internet age, for that to emerge as okay, this is our, primary go to for professional networking. Um, Various AI tools are really hit or miss. I mean, unfortunately, you do see a lot of people using AI to apply that is sending them to roles that it's not even that they're just a little bit underqualified, but hey, with a great cover letter, I can get my foot in the door. There are people applying that it's just not even the same industry. And sure, still people outside the industry can get hired, but that's where you need a really compelling cover letter. Because I always say
Yeah.
the cover letter is the bridge between the resume and the job description. But when
That's
people are
right.
using AI to write their cover letters, it's just the very generic, trite, I believe I'm the perfect person for the job because blah, blah, blah. But they're not really highlighting their uniqueness. They're not addressing elephants in the room of, I know I don't have 5 years of X technology, but my 6 years of this other one is directly translatable. And here's how I've solved business problems. Unfortunately, people are doing themselves a disservice just because you can put out 10 times the applications. It doesn't matter if they're all getting passed up. But
Yeah.
sadly, it's become a bit of a race to the bottom on the other side because recruiters are so overwhelmed by the number of resumes. And unfortunately, the percentage of them that are just not even a fit for the role, they can't review them all. And so
Yeah.
sometimes they're just cutting it off and just, okay, I'm just going to look at the first 100 when you may have your perfect person who has, 101 applicant,
Yeah.
or they're using AI on their end to weed through, which I also think is problematic because you need to take a person in their full context. Again, like somebody may be missing one of the check boxes, but everything else is so compelling. If you were a person reading the resume, you would see that. You would see, wow, this person's really excelled in every opportunity they've had. Maybe they didn't get to go to an Ivy League school, but look, they won all these math competitions at their state school or programming competitions, and look at this cool thing that they built in their evenings. So even if it's not the exact technology, or even they're 1 year short of what they're saying, those things put them head and shoulders above. So I still don't think that AI can replace humans in those kind of things.
Hmm.
And then also, I think just there is a human side. There's
Yeah.
understanding why somebody's hesitating about an offer, and really, getting into with them what their reservations are. Maybe not all their questions got answered. Maybe the people that they spoke with in the company felt like, maybe it seemed like they were holding back. Like, what do I need to know here?
Yeah.
AI is a trend, but in short, and maybe trend is the wrong word because I do think it's here to stay, but AI is a technology that's going to shift how recruiters work. It cannot be underestimated, but also it cannot be overestimated.
Well, that was pretty interesting. However you put it, it was really well insightful, and I guess a
Thank
lot of
you.
people will agree with you. So there you go. So are there any big challenges that you're seeing?
Yeah. It all kind of relates back to the AI. Like
Mhm.
I do think that there are some companies that feel like, well, now AI's replaced recruiters. We don't need recruiters. And I do think that the tools can augment a recruiter, but I liken it to a car on autopilot. Like
Yeah.
there have been some pretty bad accidents that have happened when people are just watching a movie and they put their car on autopilot. It's a handy tool, but you still need to be watching the road and have your hands on the wheel.
Yeah.
So I think that honestly, agencies have taken a little bit of a hit this year as companies feel like, oh, we're just going to use X tool or Y tool. I think it could take them a little bit to see that maybe they didn't hire the absolute best people for the job using that methodology.
Mhm. Yeah, that could be a challenge, yes. So, other than that, would you say, are there any other challenges in the US market,
God.
particularly the industries you're serving? Yeah.
I mean, wow. That is outside the scope of this 20 or 30 minutes. Like the US is a challenge right now. I mean, that's not something that we can just ignore in this. Like, I don't want this podcast to become political one way or the other, but I will say that there's just so much uncertainty.
Yeah.
And with uncertainty, people, they put their wallets away, right? Like they don't
Yeah.
know which direction things are going with the tariffs. I think it makes people afraid to invest. It makes companies afraid to invest. And
Yeah.
so I feel like if the uncertainty continues, there's a good possibility that companies may delay certain hires or they may just close the roles for now. Um, so yeah, I think that's a big challenge with the US market. I think also just keeping up with relevant skill sets is a challenge. So there are a bunch of new roles that have emerged, things like
Yeah.
AI prompt engineers. And I've not heard of any college, for instance, offering a degree in prompt engineering. It's
Uh-huh.
the kind of thing that people just need to learn on their own. And it
Yeah.
reminds me of like 15 years ago when we started seeing data scientist emerge as a role. And back
Yeah.
then, it honestly felt pretty Wild West. Like somebody may have a background as a librarian who's now a data scientist. And I
Yeah.
have the utmost respect for librarians. They actually have, very relevant skills in terms of archiving and stuff. And if they augmented that with technology, perhaps they were an amazing data scientist. But then we also saw people that came from like strict computer science and had worked with increasingly large bits of data.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like people were coming from all angles. And so it's like there wasn't any kind of unifying, like, how do we know that they're good at this or not? And so yeah, I think that is a challenge too, how to hire for these roles, how to
Yeah.
make sure that you're getting the right person that is going to
Yeah.
succeed in what you need to do.
Yeah, that is true. And more often than not, I guess most of the skills are transferable and can be learned as long as you're putting your heart into it. So obviously, it's a challenge to filter out people who have experience in it, but otherwise, like you were saying, that when data science came out, a lot of switches were happening from, well, not so much in relation with the industry or the job, but people were applying from whether they're in medicine or whether they're in hospitality. Once they learned the skill, they were applying it and applying for the job in general. So yeah,
Yeah.
that kind of jump we are going to see, especially when it comes to Gen AI and all the AI jobs that are out there. So that's great. Yeah. So are there any big initiatives NIAH Recruiting is working on at the moment?
We have been testing out different AI software. We
Uh-huh.
have found some that we like in terms of helping match candidates to roles. But again, it is the kind of thing that we use like a car on autopilot where our eyes are still on the road and our hands are still on the wheel. So this tool integrates with our database and can identify candidates that may be a strong fit for the role, but we
Hmm.
still, we find some gaps there. We do our own Boolean searches of our database and really try to find the best person for the role. Again, I don't think that any role is truly checkbox. Like the thing
Yeah.
about hiring is at the end of the day, there's a set of business objectives that need to be accomplished, and the company is looking for the person who has the best chance at succeeding at those objectives. And
Yeah.
so, the went to an Ivy League school, 5 years of Ruby, has worked in a B2B SaaS company. All these things are just guesses at what that best person might look like, but you
Yeah.
still kind of have to look outside the box. So the AI has some limitations, but we're always testing out new AI. We're testing out different ways of doing business development. We've gone into some different industries too. I mean, we started out strictly as a tech recruiting agency, and I do think it's important to diversify because
Yeah.
you never quite know what's going on with one sector. So we've put pretty big investment in learning legal and doing legal recruiting,
Oh,
and
nice.
have gone into some other sectors as well, like, even hiring for some technician type roles and
Oh,
skilled blue collar type roles.
oh, that's great. So you are expanding into staffing as well.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Well, I
that's
mean,
nice.
staffing in that I wouldn't say that these are people they're not on our payroll, like on our
Uh-huh.
bench, but
Okay.
it's still like an RPO model, which is generally what
Okay.
we work in, but we've just tried different industries.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So, what opportunities lie ahead for NIA recruiting?
I think that striking the right balance between AI and the human side is a huge opportunity.
Mhm.
I worry that some recruiting agencies may end up leaning too heavily on it. And while others may just la la la, I don't like this new technology, ignore
Yeah.
it. And I think that the sweet spot lies somewhere in the middle. And so I think that our opportunity is really in staying in touch with cutting edge technology and
Mhm.
really trying to not just follow industry trends, but like be a leader in that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's interesting. Yeah. So, tell us more about the priorities and the goals that you have set for yourself for 2025.
Guys are working with a couple really solid clients. I mean, we are a pretty small company,
Mm-hmm.
and I think often small businesses are the best ones to serve other small businesses. And so for me, an ideal client is somebody that cares as much about candidate experience as I do.
Mm-hmm.
There's absolutely no substitute for actually being a great place to work. Like, you can be the
Yeah.
best recruiter in the world, but if you've got like a 2-star Glassdoor review and all the employees are saying it's a toxic workplace and stuff, there's not that much that I can do. And frankly, there's not that much that I want to do to try to
Yeah.
overcome that. I don't want to sell somebody into going to work somewhere like that. So I
Yeah.
want to work with companies that are good companies to work in, that have good opportunities, that understand the importance of hiring, that understand that we are not your enemy, we're your partner. Like, we want the same things that you do, that want to learn with me. I mean, every candidate you speak with, it's a learning opportunity. And even if they're not the right fit, there's something that we can glean from that to just move our target slightly. And so
Yeah.
I love working with companies that also always keep in mind that, again, they are trying to solve a business problem here and they want to find the best person for that. And so if they want to approach that with curiosity with me, that's perfect. And so if I can just work with a few companies like that that really get it, that, they can have my cell phone number, we can jump on calls whenever they need to, like, we're going to be with them thick and thin, and we're going to find them those right people. That's always my goal. And then, I mean, I feel very fortunate for my staff. I have my sourcing team is in Hyderabad, actually, so I've been there 3 times, and they're a very close knit team. They all work in the office together, and so I also put a lot of time into fostering my staff. I They're not my India team; they're my team. And that's
Yeah.
why I've gone and I visited them, 3 times now. Like, I just feel like every team member needs to understand how their role directly plays into this greater goal that we have of
Yeah.
helping companies find these great long-term employees that take them to the next level, and making sure that they feel good and valued for their work. So both
That is
sides
true.
are very important to me, like the finding us doing the BD and finding us the right people to work with, and then also ensuring that my staff is happy and that they're always really well informed about all my conversations with the client, and that they're equipped with everything that they need to try to find that best person as well.
Got it. Got it. So, what is NIAH Recruiting's vision for the next 2 to 3 years?
The next 2 to 3 years, I think, are going to be really accelerated. I mean, I have to say, the past 5 years have been the weirdest times in tech. I feel like it's a little bit like Back to the Future, but ever since 2020, we've gone off on some weird alternate timeline. We went through COVID, we went through the hiring booms of 2021 and 2022, then
Yeah,
the layoffs in 2023 that continued through 2024. Like, you're always pivoting, you're always
yeah,
reinventing yourself. And 2 to 3 years, man, I don't even know what 2025 is going to bring, right? I mean, there is a lot of instability in the world right now, but
yeah,
I think that long term, we know that tech is here to stay. I mean, this innovation is what the world is about. And so I think that we have to actually not zoom in so much on things that are happening on a micro level, but
hmm,
I think the best companies are building for the future and that they're
yeah,
not going to be super reactionary. And so, again, like, I think that goes along with what I was saying about wanting to work with just a few of the right kinds of company, not companies that blow their whole budget right after they get a bunch of funding and then are freaking out when funding dries up. It's the ones that
yeah.
hire slowly and purposefully, that are looking towards how to get to profitability. Like, those have long-term staying power, and they're not going to be so affected by trends in the economy. So, yeah, but 2 to 3 years, really hard to say, really hard to say right now.
Got it, got it. But what would be your, let's say the situation stays the same, and what would be the vision for you? As in, what are their plans for your expansion, doing international recruiting, or getting into any other sector of the recruiting and staffing industry?
Still, tech recruiting is our bread and butter. And so I do very much want to grow our legal arm more. We're
Yeah.
seeing success there, but again, not on the level of the tech recruiting. And I also really am enjoying entering other industries. Like, we did have a really major client with offices both in Bangalore and in Texas, and they were in the oil and gas space. And it was interesting because about half of the hires were tech hires, but then
Hmm.
we had hires like petroleum engineers and GIS analysts and
Yeah.
land surveyors. And so those were roles that were new to us
Yeah.
and that we were very successful with just because of our methodology of really understanding the business need for the role. So I love that. I love continuing to learn. I love continuing to grow. And so I would love to, maybe even establish a couple different divisions within NIA so that
Hmm.
we can grow some of our staff into real subject matter experts in those areas.
Got it. Got it. That's a lot of perspective for this session. So, yeah, and that's a wrap for today's episode of Workforce Pulse. Huge thanks to our guest Tatiana for sharing her incredible insights on all the key topics. Now, before we go, Tatiana, where can people find you if they want to connect or learn more about your work?
Sure. So we have our website, niarecruiting.com. That's NIAH Recruiting, all one word.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn. So just look me up by my name. Maybe you can throw Etsy or Austin or something in there and I should pop up.
Perfect, perfect. So make sure you follow Tatiana on LinkedIn and check out NIAH Recruiting's website. To our listeners, if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. And one more time, if you're stuck in the grind of manual processes or struggling to grow, we can help you optimize operations, bring in leads that convert, and boost sales, all without the upfront risky costs. Head over to ambrosialautomations.com to get your free custom 12-month growth plan. All right, that's it for today. Thanks, Tatiana. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Let's build, grow, and keep the workforce pulse alive. See you next time.
Thank you.